There's a lot that you and I can learn from this. He's the co-founder and CEO of Zin Global, formerly a Jaguar Land Rover as their CISO. Please welcome on stage Ashish Shrestha. Hey, Ash. Grab a seat. Excellent. Now, let's get into this incredible story that has been a huge part of your life and many people's lives, actually. We're talking about how to have the resilience playbook. That's because in late 2025, Jaguar Land Rover was hit by a cyber incident, halted production for many weeks, caused a hit to the UK economy, and a knock-on impact of up to perhaps 5,000 organizations. None of us in the room, touch wood, will ever face what you went through at the time, but there's a lot from your playbook that we can all learn from what you went through. Let's set the scene. Take us back to that week in late August. What actually happened and what were the first 24 hours like?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, morning everybody, and Martin, what a good way to start the conversation. I vividly recall the evening before I was at Wembley Stadium. You know, I was with my 15-year-old son, and it was his birthday gift, pre-birthday gift, and we were watching Coldplay at Wembley Stadium, right? And that's what I thought, like, this is what work-life balance looks like, you know? And then I live down southeast. Coming down to home, it took us about two hours, 2+ hours. And by the time I went to bed, it was about 3 in the morning. At 6 o'clock in the morning, my phone goes off. And that's the persistent call that is happening. And you know exactly what this is now, right? On a Sunday morning, 31st of August, I pick up the call. And first, it was about some issues around accessing certain VMs. But my team said, we're seeing some suspicious activity and we need you as a CISO. So jumped on a call, bang, you know, like you're still half asleep and you've got like 60 people on a conference call. And I asked them to debrief me what's happened. We soon came to realization was that it was not a simple system access issue, but we were coming under a much more sophisticated cyber event.
Yeah, right? So at that moment you realized this is not your normal Sunday morning call.
Correct.
It would lead to shutdowns of Solihull, Halewood, Wolverhampton, and more. Why was this attack so serious?
So what we saw that morning, me and my team saw that morning, was the attack was quite live, still on in our network. So we had to do two things. One, move to containment straight away. You know, there's no time for analysis and all that. We need to start containing the attack on its path. That was our first priority. The second was the nature of the tactics, techniques, and procedures that were being used. And we had to move at a pace, right? So there was no time for perfect information. There was no time for, give me more information and then I'll make a decision. You had to make a decision on the fly. You know, you just had fragments of data hitting you, but that's where the leadership moment comes through to say, okay, this is what we are going to do from a containment perspective. My first priority was contain. Then we are going to analyze what this is. So contain the attack, live attack, and contain the malware on its path.
So this wasn't your typical ransomware data breach, some passwords have got out. What can we learn in this room from you about how to spot the severity of an attack?
I see, playbook is not going to help you win the war. I'll tell you that much, right? Because the reason I say that, and I don't say that for cynical reasons, but I'm just being realist, because the reality does not follow the script, right? The best response, the best team will not be the ones with the thickest binders, but the leaders, the team who can make the call, the decisions, and sometimes fearless decisions on the fly based on what you're seeing. So some of the things that we were seeing, there was a malware going towards our manufacturing, there was a malware coming towards our corporate ecosystem. So we had to make decisions based on what we knew about our manufacturing operations, right? we CISOs and the leaders in any industry, to be honest, we focus too much on, oh, let's illuminate what we don't know. We also call them shadow, right? Let's illuminate the shadow and make sure that we know as much as we can. But what I say to you is like a yin and a yang. That thin thread that separates the white and the black side of the yin and yang it's almost like walking on that thread. Once you've illuminated the shadow and knowing what you've seen and what you can't protect, that is so important, because that is going to help you make those bold and fearless decisions. Because the first thing first is containment, and you have to absolutely take all the steps necessary to contain the attack when it comes to incident response, right? And I think it was Mike Tyson who said it, right? Everybody has a plan until you get punched on the face. So.
And boy, did you.
Yes.
And you did it whilst at one of the most world-famous brands, the logo above the door of whether it's Range Rover, Land Rover, Jaguar, Land Rover, owned by a large organization as well, meant that it wasn't just shutting down some servers. You had supply chains and factories and cars being made and not registered, literally at the time when the UK gets very busy here with new registrations. How did that combination of a high-tech attack on what is an industry that perhaps you might have had some systems running, I'm going to guess, on a factory line, maybe on some old technology that, I don't know, running an operating system that's not even maintained anymore. But you know what? It's worked for years. No one switch it off. It still works. That's an incredible combination. What can we learn from how you dealt with that?
So the first thing you need to take into account, earlier you asked me also about, and I briefly answered it, but like the sophistication of the attack, right? If you look at the timing of the attack, the big question is also, was it an attack on JLR or was it an attack on British economy as well? That the timing of the attack, what we were seeing, the modus operandi of the attackers, and where they were going, you have to make these decisions, and there will be collateral damages. So this is constant trade-off decisions that we as leaders have to make, in terms of that cost-benefit analysis. If we had not taken there were lots of things on the media, right? Like lots of it were speculation, some of it were right, most of it were incorrect. One of the speculations was the attacker shut us down.
Yeah.
It was not the attacker shut us down. It was our decision. It was I gave the decision to shut down the traffic.
Yeah.
That was the way to stop the malware on its track. That was the reason what gave us the opportunity to start coming back. We commencing, the week ending 4th week of the attack as well,
Yeah.
right? What never comes out is 6 o'clock work. 3.5 hours later, we kick the attacker out of the network, right? In less than 6 hours, we contain the attack. And this is where now you have to make those decisions. Now then you can look at, okay, what does this mean in terms of how quickly can we come back? Who are in those, what is the domino effect it has? Supply chain, all right? Then working with the board in terms of, okay, what are the priorities that we want? Because we can come back, right? We were already like second day in the board saying, we can come back. What are the priorities? And that gives us an opportunity to now start coming back from something that could have been strategically damaging for a long term, even threaten the existence of a brand that has a heritage, right? So.
It's such a fascinating story. If you don't know the full background of it or the current situation, by the way, as far as I know, there's never been a fully published forensic analysis by JLR into what happened, and I think we can all work out why you were in meetings with British agencies, American agencies, and intelligence services. So we can draw some conclusions about how severe this was, and we don't know the ins and outs of it. And we may never know. What we do know, an incredible human cost. Yeah. So there's layers of this. There's you and your team who probably wouldn't have slept for days. There's also 30,000 people who are going, well, can I go to work? Can I log in? You have a bunch of suppliers going, how do I trust one of the world's most famous car makers? That's a huge human cost.
It is. I mean, human cost, let's start from the war room, right? Like when the attack happened, one of the first things that I do is spawn up the war room, right? Technology team, my team starts investigating. There are like the fragments of data hitting you, and there's context switching happening every like minute, if not second.
Wow.
Right? The facts are changing every hour, but yet you've got to make decisions because this is no time to wait for perfect information. But when you start the war room, you open your crisis management and all that, processes, etc. But soon you start to realize that there is human that are running these war rooms, right? There were days, weeks where most of us didn't go home as well, right? It was the start of 24-hour shifts now, and this is where I say earlier about playbooks. In your playbook, you'll have disaster recovery plan for your technology to restore from backups, and you'll have your business continuity plan from a priority perspective. But you shouldn't forget that in that war room, the most critical asset is your human. And we talk about AI hallucination and all that, but realizing the fact that humans will hallucinate at that point in time, when you've not have enough sleep, when you are constantly in this battlefield, and I'll call it battlefield, right, with the sophistication of the attack. The attacks are not only getting sophisticated, but it's getting personalized as well, right? The constant sort of attempt from the attackers to destabilize you, to intimidate you as well, and you need to deal with that. Some of the things, my team members hadn't gone home for so many days, right? And to realize that this is not going to be a 100-meter sprint. This is going to be an ultra marathon. This is going to go for weeks and months. How are we going to sustain that human in that war room, right? What is your continuity plan for that human in that war room? There's that. And as you said, 40,000 people, what is happening, right? And that's where communication becomes so important. Now, people can handle uncertainty. What people can't handle is silence. It is so important that your people find out information from you, not from social media. I mean, at that point in time, everybody was a chief critical officer on LinkedIn and all that, right? I was like, oh, wow. But I, as a leader, I had to think about my team's well-being. I had to also think about what is happening outside and what sort of messages are coming in, because do realize that soon there will be bureaucracy, politics, finger-pointing happening, not just from outside in, but inside the organization as well. But what you need to realize is, as a leader, I had to realize is I can't be sucked into it. Yeah. I have to manage the situation. I've got to manage the team. I've got to manage our well-being. I've also got to manage how are my team perceiving some of these things that are coming out. I mean, as a CISO, maybe I have got better resilience when it comes to mental well-being, but that, let's say, an analyst in my SOC who's reading all of this crap on LinkedIn and Instagram and TikTok and all of this crap that are coming out in different forms of media, why would they even want to be a CISO? Look at how miserable his life is, right?
But you do have such a responsibility there to not only your staff, but also all of those suppliers. How do you... So again, we won't have it on your scale. Maybe we're a 20-person startup or even a founder in this room at various levels. How do you manage communication when it really hits the fan? Because you also had to report to things, Whitehall, that are going to want to be like, this is a big part of the British economy. What's the latest? You probably couldn't share everything you wanted to all of the time. How do you communicate the plan, the strategy?
Yeah, so first thing first is you need to absolutely know what you don't know.
Okay.
Like I said, people can handle uncertainty better. What they can't handle is silence, right? So you need to know what you don't know. Make a catalog of it, make it a priority, give it to your teams, right? It's not about when we talk about forensic analysis, it's not about like trying to understand everything, but you do need to understand what you don't know and why is it important that you know, and that needs to be one of the first. And this is where you use community, including law enforcement and intelligence agencies, etc.
Yes.
You use them as a part of your your resource as well. Second, you also utilize the community to help you with, whether it be like, how can you help, at that very point in time, my incident response started with containment first, then analysis, then response. One of the biggest mistakes organizations do make and leaders do think is when the attack happens, you can go from attack to recovery like a leapfrog.
Right.
That's not how it works. You contain first,
Yeah.
right? You analyze, then you go in a response. Recovery might take 6+ months, but that does not mean you keep business halted. You go on a response mode. You start enabling your critical services, and that's how you also start managing your relationship with the outside world, be it regulators. Don't ask me, like whether it be ICO, whether it be any other don't ask me about what data.
Yeah.
I've already informed you that we're dealing with something sophisticated. You ask help with law enforcement agencies as well. Can you manage that for me whilst I need to focus on this?
Yeah.
Second is with your supply chain. Obviously, JLR having more than 5,000 suppliers, you just don't go and drown in that ocean. Okay, based on the priorities that has been set, if we are going to bring our logistic operations center first, who are the key suppliers that we need to talk to? And who am I going to sit down and talk face to face, as in like virtually, but where let me give them as much assurance that is needed so that we can restart the business, right? To whom am I going to keep them informed, not at the time of enabling the business, but throughout the incident? And how am I going to keep them? Transparency becomes so key with your supply chain as well. In our case, right, and in any organization case, as soon as you get hit with a cyber attack, at that very moment, it stops becoming a cyber incident. It becomes a business resilience exercise after that. A business resilience incident, right? You have to have, it's not just a CISO, responsibility. It becomes a shared responsibility of, from boardroom, understanding what are the priorities. Because you can't expect the business to, be turned on or, like on a flick of a switch.
Yeah, you
right?
want to come back gradually, right?
Second, with your procurement team, who are our key suppliers, right? With your, if you're like business like ours, your government affairs team, how can the government help us in this journey, right?
But if anyone in this room or watching this doesn't have a CISO, and they haven't got an Ash from Zin Global, and they got 10 grand of cyber spend this year, where's the best place to deploy money in a smaller organization that we can learn from?
I'm going to challenge you on that, Martin, if I may, right? The first thing is, the first part of your question, CISO, why are we making it a CISO problem?
There's an everyone problem.
It's a shared responsibility.
Okay, interesting.
From boardroom to below, it's a shared responsibility. The fact that we are getting this wrong is, from a boardroom perspective, you want to make it somebody else's problem.
Right.
But in the boardroom, if you're discussing financial risk, if you're discussing reputation risk, if you're making constant trade-off,
yes,
you need to understand that security is a strategic risk, right? Then that understanding of it becoming a shared responsibility, yes, you have your CISO there, but understanding it's a shared responsibility brings a discipline in an organization. Second, then comes down to, okay, nobody has an open checkbook. Even if I was given an open checkbook, there will be certain problems that I would not be able to solve. I jokingly said there were systems that were there when I was in my nappies, right? Like, it was like a Chernobyl. I can only see that radiation leaking, but as soon as the radiation starts leaking quite in a kind of dangerous sort of amount, I'm going to stop it. And the only way to stop it is to switch it off, right? So it comes down to that investment that you have, whatever that value is, £10,000 or £100,000, it doesn't matter. That investment, capital and people investment, you need to use that to understand what is the most critical, like your minimum business, your minimum viable business. We talk about minimum viable product. Minimum viable, it's not the case of if, it's not even the case of when. And the real test is not to defend against all the cyber attack or to stop cyber attacks. Trust me, hear it from me, and I'm not saying this to discourage. You are going to face cyber attack. We had all sorts of technologies. Those technologies protected us on a large scale. There are certain things, the attackers, see the shift in the the cyber threat world is not the sophistication of the attackers, it's how this has been industrialized and democratized, what this as in cybercrime.
Right.
Right? And I'm less worried about how smart the attackers are, because on the defense side, you equally have smarter people. Like I said, we kick the attacker out by reverse engineering his own payload. Sorry, I'm going to use he, because I think even in cybercrime,
Sure.
there's a diversity, problems.
Yeah.
But for the convenience, he underestimated our power. We reverse engineered his own payload to understand what the modus operandi was, right?
Sure.
In that payload that he had dropped, which is what enabled, me to make decisions to shut it off, right? If we have to shut off our plans, we have to for the, so that we can recover quicker and better. Well, I mean, law enforcement like NCSC, NCA, they said that this is an exemplary incident response that they've seen on the third day when they came into our office as well, right? But what is more concerning is how easy it is to attack a business, how accessible it is, and how faster it is to execute at scale. Cyber criminals operate with they have a modus operandi of a business. It's quite a profitable business. Right?
Yeah, so they're not amateurs.
They're
They're
not,
taking it seriously.
like we talk about, AI and all that. I think no conference, can go without talking about AI. But AI is lowering that barrier of entry.
Yeah.
Identity has been a problem from before 90s, right?
Yeah.
But if you look at how identity is evolving with deepfakes, with synthetic identity, with influence operations that are being run, the velocity gap, for me, it's not that the sophistication of the attack, the velocity gap. You know why organizations fail, where organizations will fail, and invest that money there, right? I'm not going to say to you, go and buy an identity and access management and all that. That £10,000, I'll give you two things. One, invest in understanding what is your minimum viable business.
Right.
Even if that costs you your first 25% of your 10K. Second, don't think like an attacker. Attack your business like an attacker.
Okay.
Do an attack breach simulation. We did attack breach simulation, which is why we could respond quite faster as well, right? Do attack breach simulation. Okay, another 20%, 25% of your 10K gone there or more. Then the third thing, use that knowledge to then establish the right governance, right process around crisis management, because you'll not have enough to go and buy technologies and all that. To the leaders out here, CISOs and likes of, or directors and technology leaders, you hear it from me, technology is not going to save you. What is going to save you is your processes, your crisis management processes, the humans who can make decisions, really good decisions when the pressure is high as well.
Yeah.
Right? Use that money to build that process, that sort of, I don't want to use the word framework, but establish, that trust ecosystem.
Yes.
Trust is built before crisis, tested when you are going through one, right? So the velocity gap, the risk of, the gap between risk of the risk of the cyber attack and the risk of decision making. The businesses fail because it's not because you don't have the most swankiest cybersecurity technology, but it fails because you are slow in decision making, there's politics, there's bureaucracy. Solve that with that 10K.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So that's quite important. The speed of risk is outpacing the risk of decision making.
Yeah.
And the second, learnings I give to you is humans. We've learned this in cyber industry for more than a decade now. Humans must lead. Technology must augment. Don't rely on your technology too hard as well,
Really?
because you'll be disappointed, right?
Wow.
And the third thing is make sure that you create that ecosystem of trust, boardroom to below as well, right? So that when you make decisions, you're empowered to make decisions. Second, when you make decisions, you know exactly how you're going to manage this situation, top down, east-west, and take it from there.
Wow, there's so much we can learn. You should write the book on this. Absolutely, there's so much we can learn. If you want to grab Ash, you'll be just off to the side of the stage. I think in summary what you're saying is that I shouldn't have my password as password 123. I'm going to go and change that straight away right now. In summary, look, thank you so much. Fascinating conversation. And yeah, if you want to grab Ash, he's going to be off to the side of the stage. Please say thank you very much, Move, to Ash.
Thanks, Martin.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Wow.